Hello, hello, hello. How we doing, viewers? How we doing today? It's great to have you all on this wonderful day. You know, thank you for joining us on this podcast. This is the Well Bridge podcast, and today joining me is my partners Adebola and Mudupe. It's great to have you, wonderful ladies, my awesome ladies. How you ladies doing?
Fantastic,
I'm doing
excellent.
Awesome.
great.
That's great. How about you, Adibola? How's everything going?
I'm doing great. It's great to be back with you guys.
Awesome, awesome. And happy 4th of July,
Yay.
to you both and to all our viewers, all our American brothers, sisters, cousins, nephews,
And
happy
Mrs.
4th of July. It's America's 250th
Oh,
independence. Wow, that's great. And we celebrate
that's
this
awesome,
awesome,
right?
time and awesome day. So
Mm.
ladies, are you all excited today? Excited?
Excited for liberty, excited for freedom, excited for what it brings, what it represents, and we're hoping that a lot of people will find, impact in how that this season brings for them.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. What about you, Adebola? You have anything to say to our viewers?
I can't wait to get started. Let's see what we have today.
Well, that's good. Without taking so much of our time, a few things that all we've been, this is our, 23rd episode, and we have been bringing you all value, you know, every single weekend. And, this weekend is not going to be, it's going to be another exciting one. And today
Mhm.
we're going to be talking about car buying in North America. You'd be like, what? Why are we talking about car buying? Who cares about that? But you know what? It's very, very important, especially, as a new immigrant, somebody
Mm.
who's just coming into this country. It's very important for us to understand some of the traps and some of the
Mm.
strategies that we can leverage as new immigrants. And that's why we think this topic is going to be very essential, especially for most of our new immigrants just coming, or maybe you're planning on relocating and you're already having certain things. These are some of the things that you want to have in mind. So by the time you get here, you have a very, very good soft landing and you don't get into unnecessary debt. So, what are we talking about when it comes to every single location we find ourselves in? Mobility is a very essential part of our journey as an immigrant, anywhere you find yourself in. But here, let's focus more about North American. So especially if you come to a town whereby maybe it's a suburb or a neighborhood, whereby public transportation is very limited or doesn't even exist. How do you navigate? How do you
Mm.
move around? How do you get from one job to the other, or do even as little as you're shopping, moving around? So these things are very important for us to talk about. Even though we have access, to ride sharing services like Uber, Lyft, private cabs, but when you look at the cost of some of these things, it might definitely put you in a financial nightmare if care is not taken. If you've not really sat yourself down to really look at what's coming in versus what's going out, even despite the fact that you need mobility. So if you're able to save up, yeah, it might be a better financial decision, for you, to save money or to be using the right share till you're able to save money to get something that would be convenient for you. But first of all, Adebola, the very first question I would like to ask, I would like to ask you so we could really educate or help navigate our viewers, is why is buying a brand new car versus a pre-owned, one that why would it be a financial trap? Many new immigrants might fall into.
All right. It's nice to be here. Happy 4th of July to everybody. I'm just going to dive straight into this because when Demola brought up this topic and it was like, okay, buying cars, like what are we talking about? But really, a second look at it, I thought, okay, this is us providing information based on some of our own experiences or experiences in our community other people's experiences, and just trying to recommend some guides to people out there, and specifically somebody that is just in getting into a new the country. So I'm gonna break it down from a practical immigrant money angle, including the hidden costs that make a new car feel affordable at first, but expensive in the long term. And talking about buying and pre-owned, it's actually based on an individual needs. You need to know what you want. Buying a brand new car can become one of the first financial traps for many new immigrants because it often looks like symbol of stability, success, and making it. But financially, it can quietly drain income before a person has fully built credits, savings, emergency funds, or even long-term assets. So, and that's what you want to focus on, building your long-term assets. So you look up at the depreciation trap. A new car start losing value almost immediately. You take it out of the dealership.
Yeah.
You know, you also look at talk about the credit and financing. Right, you're getting yourself into getting a loan right away. Many are still building U.S. credit history, so they may not qualify for the best loan terms, even when the monthly payments looks manageable. So you have to put that into consideration. And there's also the insurance. You have to pay insurance on your car. You can't drive around without insurance. That's a bigger liability. So new cars usually cost more to insure because they are more expensive to replace or repair. So that monthly insurance bill can shock someone who only like budget for maybe car repair, I mean for the car payments rather. So there's also the buying for image instead of function.
Hmm.
Many immigrants come to a new country wanting to feel established, I mean, respected and comfortable. I know people from my side do that a lot. But a shiny new car can feel like proof of progress. But if the car payment takes money away from rent, stability, emergency savings, or life insurance or retirement savings, then it's not a blessing. So a pre-owned car, especially a reliable certified pre-owned or well-inspected used car, often allows a new immigrant to get transportation without absorbing the steepest early depreciation, you know. And I would say the real lesson is this: a car should support your new life, not delay your financial foundation. And I'm going to rest my case there.
Wow. Wow. I hope our viewers are listening. It should not delay your financial foundation. Wow, that is very, very apt. And I think you're definitely spot on because of so many hidden costs that comes with buying a new car that people do not factor, especially when as a new immigrant. You don't even understand the system. You're still getting used to the system. So thank you, Adebola, for shedding awesome light on that. So Modupe, another question that comes to mind, just looking at some of the things that I've seen around, that most immigrants have witnessed, or some immigrants that I know, even including myself, what would you say would be the difference between maybe financing a car and maybe leasing a car? And which option would somebody prefer? Which one would you say would be better for someone who's just starting, a new life, in North America?
Thank you. That's a good question. I just want to again say I'll be the first to, I mean, a whole lot of people out there. I'm looking at a topic and I'm here smiling and I'm saying, rather than us just narrow focus on getting that car that we're talking about, be it the new one or even the pre-owned one, I think that should even be like the last resort for every immigrant coming on board. I'm going to address your question, okay? But I wanted to make sure I touch base on that. I mean, there are other options that could still be looked into, right, outside of that. I know you talked about being in locations where, there are no public transportation. But what if there are? right? There are quite a few city buses, or or if you live in metropolitan cities like
And subways.
subways, like New York City, or maybe somewhere in the Bay Area in California, and the rest of them, or even some city county buses, right? I mean, those are still options that can still be, looked into. And I also understand the fact that these buses will not run 24/7, right? So there might be some exception that comes along the way. But what am I saying in essence? We're providing information. We're saying to these immigrants just coming in, we're saying, hey, to our brothers, to our sisters in this community, let the car purchase, be it the new or the pre-owned, based on whatever you want to, go for. Let it be the last resort. There might probably even be, individuals, maybe, oh, you could, because we might be coming from our so-called wherever we're coming from with a particular status. And so when we come here, to be honest, not all the time are we going to match that status we came with, letter to letter. So there is the need for us to be open to acclimatization. I think you mentioned that, Demola. So there is the need for us to explore things from another perspective and say, what would work for me, if this does not work for me? And so to your question, would an individual who is considering either owning or having a pre-owned vehicle, should they go for financing or leasing? They are not the same when it comes to car buying, car purchase, right? It could probably mean a different thing in finance or in accounting, but I'll stick to what it means as far as car purchase is concerned. Trying to acquire your car and you go the financing route. What does financing means? It means you have the intention to purchase this vehicle. Over time, it would eventually become your own. But at the time of you signing that agreement to acquire it for purchase, it's still not yours, okay? Because you need to fulfill your obligation of making the entire payment as outlined in that agreement. That is financing. And we're not talking 2 months. We're not talking a year. We're talking, a long extended period of time, right? And just FYI, right? You will find out that the dealership, they are out there to make things easy for you. They keep telling you it looks easy, quote and unquote, because they keep telling you you have options. They could even give you like 96 months, 80 months, like ridiculous long period of time.
Yeah.
But you don't know that, to be honest, you're locked into something that is not worth it in the long run. While leasing means that you're essentially renting the vehicle, right? So you're literally not going to own it unless you make a change of heart at the end of the day and make the purchase. But at the time you're entering into that agreement, you're saying, I will, rent this for this period of time. And then you have several restrictions. Maybe mileage, you can't do more than this mileage, it's not your own, and all the rest. So for most of the new immigrants coming into the community, regardless of wherever you find yourself here in the US, financing a reliable used vehicle is often a better long-term financial decision, because again, you're looking at it that used vehicle won't be as expensive. And so it won't take you so long to make up the long payment that you've entered into. Leasing may make sense only for individuals, who probably have a stable income, who prefer driving newer vehicles and understand the limitations. Some individuals really love to change vehicles very often. So maybe that's the person's lifestyle. Maybe that's what they want. But that's a concern, and it could be a trap, which is one of the things we've spoken about here. But one of the things to look into when it comes to this financing and leasing, which we're trying to, compare and contrast, is that you need to sit down and talk to yourself. Debola kind of gave us a lowdown of how these things work when she answered the initial question. An individual who is not set up, right, for this, you will find out that this particular car purchase, right, shenanigan could end up getting an individual trapped up for the longest. We're talking a huge monthly payment in addition with the other fees you never budgeted for. You're talking about insurance. What about repairs? What about these? What about that? Don't get us wrong. Transportation is going to be very, very critical, especially to get you to move from point A to point B. But can we sit down and ask ourselves very, very cogent questions? Can I do away with this? What can I do differently before we settle for, one or the other? And just to wrap up, is that the goal should be to minimize your transportation costs. While you're trying so hard, Debola mentioned, and I re-emphasize, build your financial foundation, savings, investment, and in the long run, your credit history. But shouldn't be the focus on whatever it costs. I'm just going to get that car. I'm driving a G-Wagon from where I came from. I'm going to get here. It's going to be below me to drive anything less than a G-Wagon. Uncle, auntie, we might not be getting there. We might not be able to reconcile at the end of the month, which is the reason why we're bringing this conversation, to think out of the box and understand how things work within, the perimeters in which we find ourselves, and try to see what works for us with the intention of building a financial foundation.
Awesome. Thank you for really, really diving into that. I remember, even my own very first car, there's so many decisions I had to make, and it had to make sense based on what was coming in, because you don't want to be spending more on transportation compared to what's coming in. So this could be some of the financial traps that, if you don't really sit down and ask yourself truly, it could definitely become an uphill financially for the person. I remember, my next question is very interesting, because I remember my very first car, and I bought that car at, one of all these side dealerships. And, these guys, they play a lot of tricks on you, and they take out different things. And obviously, because I was new in the country, I didn't know any better. So, we do different things. You say, you want to go buy your own car. So my question is, what dealer tactics should every first-time car buyer know, before walking into a dealership? Because there's so many tactics, that these guys, they play on you. And especially as a new immigrant, you might fall for it. Adebola, you could,
I'm going to keep it brief and focus on those tactics that affect the buyer's, I would say the buyer's wallet most, which is price, financing, the add-ons and the pressure. First, I'm going to advise, if you are new and you want to visit a dealership, better take somebody that is experienced, that has gone through it before with you, because there will be a lot of things that will entice you, really. And there will be a lot of things that you think, oh, they are doing you a favor. They are trying to help you. Yeah, they're trying to help you, but every business wants to make profits at the same time. So the very first, let me say, for a first-time car buyer, you should watch out monthly payment trap. They ask, oh, what payment can you afford? And instead of discussing the full price, always negotiate the out of the door price, not just the monthly payment. Okay, you have to be aware of that. And you can even find out before you go. Ask people, what should I expect? What should I do? And people that have experience, they can tell you, okay, do this when they ask you this, and things like that. Another thing, they advertise this low prices, then add fees. It can be advertised cheaply, but dealers may add, some of those mandatory fees later, and there's nothing you can actually do about that. Unwanted add-ons, some parts, some glitters, some things that you don't need. That happened to me, and I was looking at my cars. Yes, I said, okay, I never use this. Why did I take it? Like, I just have those things on the car, but those options, add-ons, which I have to pay extra for. Okay. And then the financing pressure, that is one thing. You're going to spend time there trying to negotiate, go back and forth. Okay, let me talk to my manager. They'll come back. They'll talk to everybody. Okay, let's talk to just be informed. they may take financing sound like the only or the best option, but you can also get pre-approved from a bank or a credit union first. Then compare, compare to what they are offering you. You can even call your bank while you're there and trying to get your own pre-approval from them. All right. So mixing everything together, the combined car price, the trading, down payment, loan term, and then you are confused because you're new, you are not familiar with those terms, you're not familiar with those things. Everything needs to be separated and they need to explain it to you. And if you're not sure, don't go ahead. Don't go ahead. So there's one thing that is very common. Today only price. That pressure. If you don't do it today, by tomorrow we won't have that sale again. The sale ends today. We can only offer, the manager said we can only offer you this today. If they rush you, pause.
Manager special.
Manager special. If they are rushing you, just pause. A good deal, I would say, should still make sense after you review the contract carefully. So the best rule, do not sign until you understand the total price, the interest, the loan terms, the fees, the add-ons, and then the final monthly payment. And make sure that you are satisfied before you sign anything.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
For a new immigrant listening to all these, they could be almost deterred from even buying a car. Could be like, wow, this is a lot to take in.
The truth. A lot of us fell into those traps, like
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any single car I've ever bought, I don't think I ever spent less than 5 hours at a dealership.
You are a repeat offender, Ademola. So you did it the first time, you went again.
It's one of the processes that I dread the most. Buying a car is one of the processes I dread the most because there's always a lot of twisting, a lot of false things if you're not very, very careful, and they manipulate you and manipulate figures from time to time. So you really, just like Adebola said, you have to go with somebody who's experienced so that you just don't fall yourself into a financial trap that you never planned for. And the very funny thing is, once you drive that car off the lot, that car, you've already lost almost about $10,000 or a good chunk of that car. So you want to be very, very careful. Take your time, look for experienced people, who are around so that they can guide you. One of the things that I'll also like to, and I'll throw this to Modupe, how can people choose transportation that builds wealth instead of draining it? Because we've already established the fact that you're not just going to teleport as a new immigrant from your house to your job. So you still need to get around. So, but what we're talking about is we have to be smart. We have to be strategic in doing these things so that we don't fall into financial hardship just because we need to get from point A to point B. So how can people choose transportation that builds wealth instead of draining wealth?
To be honest, there is no reason to be sentimental or be emotional when it comes to certain things that are considered liabilities. And I'm just going to throw it out there. A car is not an asset, it's a liability. Okay. I can understand the fact that you might need it to move you from point A to point B, but understanding and taking emotion and sentiment out of the door will let you see clearly. You know how I'm saying? Like, can literally see crystal clear, and then you can make the best decision for you. What is our podcast for, Demola? Our podcast is to ensure that our immigrant community are well informed in making the right decision, not just for themselves, but for their family. Not just for their family right now, immediate, but something that they can leave behind, something that can outlive them, which is the reason why we're having all this conversation. So a smart transportation strategy for a new immigrant or somebody that's even been here for so long, whatever, buy something that is dependable. Even if it is a used vehicle, go for it. Adebola touched on something, and I'm going to just quickly share my personal experience, before I go down the list of some of the things an individual should be looking at. Coming in newly here and without somebody guiding you and telling you some of these things. We didn't have a podcast to go listen to to tell us, okay, this is how you're going to, if you're going to purchase a car, do away with certain things, go for this or go for that. We talked about credit building the other day, right, on one of our podcast episodes, and we talked about how vital it is, and however you position yourself will determine if you're going to make it through in the credit history environment or not, right? But one of the things that you find out that many people want to just, get these expensive, luxurious cars. Then they keep moving from one car dealer to another car dealer. What do? They keep running your credit. The next one, you run your credit. The next one. So you now have daunting credit inquiries on your report. That alone is a dent. That will be there for a while. And many people are falling victim of this, you see. So buying one that is just dependable and it's okay. Point A to point B. You are safe, everybody is fine, it's okay. Something that keeps, keeping monthly transportation expenses well within your budget. Demola talked about it. I'm going to re-emphasize it. You know what's coming in. Sit down and budget. What's going out? What are those things that are important? A roof over my head, clothes on my body, food to eat, the children to eat. Keep within the budget. If it does not meet the budget, then that car is not for you, sir. It's not for you, ma. Right now. Like right now. So we're going to wait until we can make that car, right? That you so desire, that meets your lifestyle or your status. But for right now, we do with what we have. Paying off the vehicle as quickly as possible. So even if it means, going far above just the minimum, they just tell you monthly is this. If you can do way more, as long as, there are no penalties for prepayment penalty, go for it. Take that on, right? Invest the money you save instead of spending it on rapid vehicle depreciation. What is depreciation? The wear and tear in an asset. You drive it off the lot, it's already started depreciating.
Yeah.
And remember that the cars are typically lost in value. See, I'm going to be very, very honest. You could use cars and make a big purchase and buy your Ferrari, your Bugatti, whatever. If that is not for a business, you have no business buying it as a personal expense, people. Because if it was used for a business, then that you could write off. Bonus depreciation, right the door. Remember that cars typically lose value, people. So while we're investing and trying to get appreciating assets, let us ensure that we are focusing on those assets that will build value, will help us build wealth and get us to where we need to be. So that will be my take on that. Smart strategy to move you from point A to point B. Stay out of being emotional. It's not going to help no one.
You're right about that. You can't be emotional about money, about finances. I want to thank you, Debola and Modupe. You guys are always awesome. You guys always bring the fire. You guys bring the heat. Our viewers, we just appreciate you. We thank you. We want you to continue to like, subscribe, and share, with, especially new immigrants or even people who've been here for quite some time, because these are some of the things that we don't even discuss in our community. And this is an avenue for you to share this information, share this podcast. And, just to wrap this whole session up, you want to drive the car that supports your financial goals, not the one that impresses others. You don't need to impress no one. Remember, mobility is key, not a lifestyle at this point as a new immigrant. Wealth is built through wise financial decisions, not expensive monthly car payments. So I want you to understand, your first car in North America, in the US, should improve your mobility, not limit your financial future. Make transportation a tool for building wealth, not a burden that delays it. We want to thank you. It's the Wealth Bridge Podcast. We appreciate you all. Have a wonderful 4th of July. Debola Modupe, see you at the top on our next podcast. And viewers, we love you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Go enjoy that barbecue. Have fun. And don't drink and drive. All right. Take care, everyone. God bless.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.